Well, the reaction flying in from everywhere as the Warriors narrowly win Monday night, but all anyone was talking about was Kevin Durant, including Charles Barkley live here on our show yesterday. I posed the question to him, is there someone to blame for Durant getting hurt? And Barkley had a very definitive response.
Yes, there is somebody to blame. The Golden State Warriors for putting KD out there. Listen, that was not right. You know, if you go back and look at the last 2 weeks, the article comes out, KD's worst nightmare, the Warriors are winning without him. Then you come out, you read the articles, the Warriors are really unhappy when KD won't risk his Achilles. They're frustrated with KD. Now this man has to be feeling some type of way. So I blame the Warriors for KD getting hurt, and I don't care what they say about it. They shouldn't have put that man out there. And you know how I know it? Because he blew out his Achilles.
That was Charles Barkley with us yesterday. I want to bring this to the table here, and I wanted to bring the football guys in on it as well, because I think there's a bigger picture topic to cover in this. Beyond just the specifics of Kevin Durant, it is the pressure to play with an injury. It is the pressure that you feel, perhaps, from fans, something that we know Kevin Durant has been susceptible to. We know he pays attention to what people are saying. Maybe pressure that you feel from teammates or from your organization, pressure that you feel internally. Do you believe, Seth Greenberg, that Kevin Durant felt pressured to be out there on the floor Monday night?
I don't think he felt pressured to the point where he went out and would risk injuring himself. No, I don't think so. I think he controls his own destiny. Look, there's a difference as an athlete between being injured and inconvenienced. He was severely injured. He knows his body, but he has a support system. So, no, I don't think that the outside pressure had any impact on his decision. Maybe some internal pressure because, he is competitive, but that's why you have a support team to tell you, Kevin, we're looking at the MRI, don't play. You're not playing. And I don't think that there's any way that the Golden State Warriors would have put him out there with the idea that there was any chance he was going to be injured.
I don't believe there's any way KD was not playing in that game. And there's two reasons why. One, great or elite athletes believe that they're superhuman. These guys believe that they are invincible to anything and they can do anything. It's one of the reasons why they actually become elite. It's because they think that they can do things other people just can't. And the second thing is this. Ask any athlete. The number one fear they have is living with regret. And I just believe or think that KD sat back and said, I don't want to regret not being a part of this series, not giving this a try. Sometimes athletes or warriors or whatever we want to phrase them as go, this is worth it to me. That's what makes these guys great, is that belief that they can do anything and that they're not going to look back and go, I wish I would have.
Yeah. I posed a question to Seth, and we were talking yesterday. Did the outside influence have anything to do with KD trying to hurry back? And the reason I posed that question is because of the timeline of how we know KD responds to outside noise. He's always entertaining it. It's been a part of his journey. We've talked about it a number of times on this show. You and I had a knockdown drag out about why is KD responding to people that don't matter at all to anything that he's doing. So that's the reason why that thought came up in my mind. And here's the other thing, and to Dan's point, we think we're superhuman. All athletes, in order to reach a height like that, you have to believe something about yourself can go a little bit further than everybody else. I 100% agree with that. But it's also people's job to protect you against that type of thinking. That's their number one job. This plays into the narrative that they just want to get the athlete back on the court or back on the field because it makes sense for them, right? We talked about this injury from the beginning. It's basketball. You have a torn lower extremity muscle playing basketball where you literally run and jump and pound on your legs every single play. And to come back early because you're down 3-1 in a final series, I agree with all of that mentality. But at some point, the risk that he took was a lot greater than we thought he should.
So along those lines, this has obviously changed so much, even immediately with free agency. But one thing that sticks out to me is the juxtaposition of Kawhi Leonard on the other side, who was totally crucified last year for not playing. Everyone's saying, oh, he's doing his own thing. He doesn't care. He doesn't want to come back. Well, he goes to Toronto and incorporates his own medical people, his own inner circle with their medical staff. And now look at him playing hurt in the playoffs, in the finals. He's continued on that way. LeBron James, somebody who didn't really have a bad injury until this year, for the first time in his career. He always has worked with his own people and kept that amongst his own deal, not participating in a lot of the camps. And people don't care because they say, yeah, he needs to do that.
So
and it's kept him healthy.
If someone let KD down, you know who it is? It's his support team. It's the people that are supposed to be looking out for his best interest, whether it's his agent, his manager, his own medical staff, his worker, whoever it is. If someone let him down, it's not the Golden State Warriors, because in the end, someone has to tell him play or not play.
But do we think that there's the chance that KD just sat there and said, guys, I understand the risk.
Yeah.
And the risk is worth it to me. I've worked my whole life. You work your whole life for championships and to be great, not for social media.
If the risk, he would have come back. If the risk, he would have come back.
But maybe there's the chance that KD understood he's a smart guy, understood all the information and said, I've worked since I was a kid to be in this moment. And I'm not going to look back and say, I wish I would have. KD, you're running this risk. I understand that.
So
but it's worth it.
If that's the case, we don't need trainers and doctors. Like their job, like our job is to play, their job is to protect you from potentially getting injured or popping your Achilles when they know you have an issue going on.
What about your guys, though? The guys that you hired, your personal support team, all right, they should be saying, you know what?
If your personal support team are not doctors and you got doctors
that's their job to
telling you that you could play, then they were wrong.
LeBron travels with his own
guys. The reality is there's some guys that think they're on such a different level with the way they think about themselves, it doesn't matter what you tell them.
But
they're going.
But then you can't play if they don't allow you to play.
He was clear to play.
No way Steve Kerr puts him in that game with any thought that there's a chance he's going to get hurt.
And
no chance.
That's where I'm being careful of making that indictment on anybody. But somebody had to say, Kevin, you're cleared and you can play. And look, let's not freak accident, pop this. This is a result of his calf strain. All right, this Achilles tear is a result of what we saw 4 weeks ago when KD looked back like somebody kicked him in the back of the leg and tore his calf muscle. That's what this comes from.
This is why I wanted to bring everyone into the conversation, because it's someone everyone has a perspective on, and we invite yours as always. Meanwhile, we'll take a short...
An MRI on his injured Achilles. League sources telling Adrian Wojnarowski and Ramona Shelburne that the Warriors believe the MRI will confirm a torn right Achilles tendon. Questions about whether he should have played in Game 5 on a strained calf continue as Warriors president Bob Myers took responsibility last night. A handful of notable players have suffered a torn Achilles in recent years, including KD's current teammate DeMarcus Cousins. Their average return time has been about 9 months, though that can certainly vary from player to player. If there's any player Durant should turn to, it would be Dominique Wilkins, who talked to Cousins after his injury. Neek averaged nearly 30 points per game the following season after tearing his Achilles, and Neek sent out a great tweet earlier today just saying if anybody can come back stronger, it would be Kevin Durant. Great to have Woj here with us. What is the latest in the test being done on this Achilles for KD?
Well, Kevin Durant left Toronto, flew to New York, where he's undergoing that MRI to essentially confirm what I think the organization and the attending physicians at the game last night believe, that he has torn his Achilles tendon. They've got to see the severity of this injury and then start him down the path of probably surgery and then a long rehab process.
Yeah, well, we'll see how this plays out as the injury now brings into deeper focus the options KD has this offseason. Now, he could opt in for $31.5 million for the final year of the deal he signed with the Warriors. That deadline is June 29th. The Warriors could give him $221 million over 5 years. He can get as much as $164 million over 4 years from another team if he becomes a free agent. And that Achilles injury is not insurable, meaning whoever signs signs him would not get any cap relief if he's out next year. Now, on Get Up this morning, our NBA insider Bobby Marks was asked if teams would consider giving KD the max after last night's devastating injury.
Talked to 3 teams, and I didn't even get the question out, Greeny. I said, if Kevin Durant was if you had cap space, would you go out and sign Kevin Durant, knowing that he will likely be out maybe the whole year? And the resounding answer was yes.
Wow. With what Bobby just said, when you look at the impact of this injury and the rest of free agency, as well as the trade market of Anthony Davis, what are you hearing?
Well, I think especially with KD, each team's going to judge that differently. There's no question there would still be max deals out. You'd essentially be paying almost $40 million for a red shirt next year. The player in free agency that I think this injury impacts the most is Kyrie Irving, because the thought had been and the conversation had been either Brooklyn or New York is a package deal. Both teams had two max salary slots to sign both of them, but will either the Knicks or the Nets want to take Kyrie Irving as a solo act? I think both organizations saw this ultimately as him bringing Durant or another big wing with him. I think it will be more dicey for Kyrie in free agency with KD essentially, being out next season and teams having to judge this differently.
Did it change anything for the Pelicans now as we're 9 days away from the draft with Anthony Davis?
They would like to get a deal done before, well before next Thursday's draft. New Orleans is engaged with several teams right now. The Lakers remain aggressive in here to try to get a deal done.
Woj, thank you so much. Don't forget to catch Woj along with Jay Williams tonight, 8 p.m. on ESPN2 for our...
So do you really want to take a timeout up 6 with the NBA title 3 minutes away, or do you want to step on the gas right then? Here's the pivotal moment you may recall. 6 or so to go, Raptors down by 2, Kawhi downtown, bang! And then Kawhi Leonard hits a kind of tough shot, a little bit of a bank. Inside, he's got 5 straight points. Then he sizes up DeMarcus Cousins and says, "Boogie this, boogie me." 8 straight points. Then he drives for 10 consecutive points, all part of a 12-2 run, when Coach Elvis Costello takes a timeout that he would have lost if he hadn't used it then. It was Elvis Costello.
We had 2 free ones that you lose under the 3-minute mark, and we just came across and just decided to give those guys a rest.
Okay, Elvis Costello now calls himself Nick Nurse. Steph Curry and Klay Thompson were the ones who benefited from the rest. The 3 from him, and then the 1 from Thompson. Warriors 106-105. Some reaction.
Nick Nurse is the reason the Raptors lost last night. And I have a lot of respect for Nick Nurse and the job that he's done. It's not an indictment against his coaching ability. It's just that last night, I found myself at the end of the game looking at him. With 3:05 left, decides to call a timeout and disrupts Kawhi Leonard and the offense.
I had no problem with the timeout. Kawhi looked gassed. He looked gassed. And I think that it was really, he was giving them a play out of a timeout. But anybody I think anybody who thinks that timeout was bad, they don't know anything about basketball.
You can't call timeout right there. You get a Golden State Warriors a chance to go to the huddle with a championship pedigree. They regroup, then they're back feeling good about themselves. And then late in the game, you have the basketball. Kawhi's up top. That's when you need the timeout.
So it's unanimous on in search of lost time outs. We go back to Oracle. Game 6 Thursday night. Raptors try to take their first title. Take 2, or the Warriors can set up arguably the greatest comeback in finals history. Our coverage starts, well, it's already started. Officially, it starts with NBA Countdown at 8:30 Eastern, 5:30 Pacific on ABC and the ESPN app. And now the only person you have not heard from on this, someone with his own injury history anyway, Eldrick T. Woods.
Last night began with the unknown surrounding Kevin Durant's availability for one game, and then ended with the unknown surrounding KD's availability for the future. In between, we were amazed, then shocked, then disappointed, and then speechless. This was supposed to be the summer of KD. Now the aftermath features questions no one seemed to consider 24 hours ago. The last time we saw Kevin Durant walk off the court for the final time in a season without a championship, he watched the Warriors celebrate, and the fallout changed the landscape of the NBA. It was the summer of 2016, and weeks after ending his run in Oklahoma City, the Warriors recruited KD to help rebuild their dynasty. Whether they were the Hampton Five or the Death lineup, Durant's commitment to Golden State was felt everywhere, especially on the biggest stage when he won 2 Finals MVPs in his first 2 seasons in Oakland.
The back-to-back NBA Finals MVP, Kevin Durant.
Yet, when some questioned his role in the offense in the first round of this postseason, KD didn't hold back on sending a message to everyone, including Clippers guard Patrick Beverley, with the series tied at 1.
I'm Kevin Durant. You know who I am. Y'all know who I am.
Durant responded by averaging 42 points in the next 4 games, including 50 in the series clincher. Then in round 2 against the Rockets, after averaging 45 minutes per game, this happened in Game 5.
Kevin Durant laces one through. And he's hurt. He is holding on to his right Achilles.
A calf strain brought up questions about a timetable on when Durant could return, while the Splash Brothers took over for the rest of the series and then swept the Blazers. It also brought up a sensitive topic with Durant's role in the dynasty.
Most definitely. I mean, it's been that way since I got here. It's the Warriors and KD, you know what I'm saying? And I understand that. And I felt like my teammates and the organization know exactly what I've done here on and off the court to become a part of this culture, to kind of stand my flag in this, in this coach and this organization.
But after KD's Achilles injury on Monday night in Game 5 of the NBA Finals, no one can question his impact on the Warriors for the last 3 years. Now, with uncertainty surrounding his health, the question becomes which team will commit to Kevin Durant this summer, with a free agency decision looming that could once again change the landscape of the league.
So when Kevin Durant went down last night, I thought of Dave Dravecky, and if that name doesn't mean anything to you, I'll explain it in a minute. But Michael Wilbon joins us now from Chicago. Who did you think of, and what did you think of at that moment?
Wow, Dave Dravecky. I'm old enough, Keith. We're about the same age. So that's a really tight one and a good one. You know what? I don't know that I thought of anybody. I just thought this is sort of a doom scenario. And relatively speaking, because Kevin Durant is not going to stop playing. He's going to stop playing for about a year. But when he went back down like that, it was almost the same motion that the first injury produced. And so now you're like, okay, what does this mean? I went immediately to what it means. What does it mean for the Knicks and the Nets? You know, and maybe the Clippers and teams that were counting on having a real shot at Kevin Durant. And what does it mean for the Warriors who thought they might be losing him but might not lose him? Do you go to a new sort of medical team where you're going to be out for a year and rehab this rehabilitation under people you don't know and aren't intimately familiar with, taking care of you? So my mind immediately went to this is going to have a sort of a tidal wave effect on several teams and a big ripple throughout the NBA.
And it'll go on for months, as you suggest. And to explain, Dave Dravecky was the Giants pitcher, came back. They had removed a cancerous growth in his pitching arm, his left arm. He pitched a great game. They made a second start, and in the 6th inning, the humerus bone in the arm shattered, and he screamed in agony, and he never pitched again. Lost the
I was
arm.
at the great game start, Keith. I was at the good one. Didn't have to endure watching the second one.
And one of the great people in baseball, too. All right, and anyway, back to this. Who is more worried going into Game 6, do you think? Golden State because he is gone, or Toronto because even though he is gone, they could not beat them last night?
I think it's Golden State. Even though, Keith, I am not going to go and bet that the Warriors are going to lose 3 consecutive games, which would be, in this case, all 3 games in one playoff series. It's tough for me to see that, even though I've sat there and watched them lose, games 3 and 4. I think that the Warriors are still the team that, are facing elimination here. But, I think they still have to find a way now, knowing that Kevin Durant is not going to come back. And as someone pointed out after last night's game, those 11 points in 12 minutes that he produced, they needed every one of those 11 points to win that game by 1. So I think it's still the Warriors.
All right, last point. Lost in all the drama last night when the coach Nurse gets the Raptors on the court. Is he going to remind them that they do not have to take a shot the moment they get the ball?
I guess They don't have to do that.
Yeah.
And it's a weird. Keith, there was so many bizarre things that you could bring up as like secondary points that would be your primary point any other day, except the Kevin Durant injury obscured almost everything else, including the final score. But I mean, some of these shots, I mean, you look, when you're Toronto and you've got a lead, why do you wind up having three-point heaves when you've got the lead and some momentum and an advantage at home? But there are a lot of things unexplained last night. That's left just alone.
Sorry, we will. Sorry to call that timeout in the middle of your answer. Oh, that's another topic. PTI's Michael Wilbon. As always, my pleasure, Michael. Thank you.
Thanks, Keith.